The last digit of your birth year, that number that completes the date you arrived in this world, is telling you something you haven't heard yet. Not because you haven't paid attention, but because no one taught you to listen at that level of silence. Scorpio has been described in 1,000 ways. Intense, powerful, mysterious, jealous, loyal, dangerous. And perhaps you recognized yourself in some of these words, or rejected others with the same intensity that is the sign's trademark. But what if all these descriptions were just the top layer? What if there was a code embedded in the very number that concludes your birth year that explained not only who you are, but why you are exactly this way and not otherwise? This is not speculation. It's a system that has existed for millennia, intertwined with the profound nature of Scorpio, that will show you something you've already felt but never been able to name. By the end of this video, you'll understand why certain patterns repeat themselves in your life with a regularity that seems greater than chance would justify. Why certain people arrive with an intensity that goes beyond what any common explanation can encompass. Why certain cycles of loss and transformation follow a logic that you always sensed, but never had the right words to describe. Take your birth year, look at the last digit, and stay there, because what comes next will change how you see yourself. Most people who truly know Scorpio understand that this sign is not simple. It's not that intense, jealous, mysterious description that appears in every horoscope. Scorpio is a force field. It's the sign that knows the true weight of things, that can't stay on the surface even if it tries. That perceives what lies beneath what is being said. That senses the emotional temperature of an environment before any words are exchanged. But here's what few people realize. Two Scorpios born in the same year and month can be profoundly different. Not by chance, not just because of different experiences, but because there's a different frequency operating underneath, something that was calibrated before the world could teach you anything. This frequency starts with the last digit of your birth year. It's no coincidence that numerology and astrology have walked hand in hand for millennia. They are two languages attempting to describe the same phenomenon, the invisible pattern that organizes a life. And when you cross the field of Scorpio, with the numerological vibration of your birth year, what emerges is not a random combination. It's a map. A map of who you are in moments when no one is watching, of how you love, of how you destroy yourself, of how you are reborn. You're going to discover this map today. And before I show you what each digit reveals about your deepest nature, I need to explain how this system works from the inside, because understanding the mechanics before seeing the result completely changes how you'll receive what comes next. The digit that closes your birth year is not a detail, it's the tone, the underlying musical note that plays beneath everything you experience as a Scorpio. You may not hear this note, but it's there. And when you learn to recognize it, you begin to understand why certain patterns repeat themselves, why certain people arrive, why certain losses hurt in a way that seems bigger than the situation justifies. And here's where the uncomfortable part begins. Not because what's about to be revealed is frightening, but because Scorpio prefers to examine the entire world before turning its gaze inward. It prefers to understand others before being understood. And what this digit reveals is essentially how you function on the inside, with a precision that can make you feel seen in a way you weren't expecting. So, before I show you what your number means, you are here, in that space between knowing you carry a code and still not knowing what it says about you. This discomfort, this "I need to know more," is Scorpio functioning the way it was made. You can't stay on the surface. You never could. It was while searching for answers to this that I found this digital book, The Divine Path That Guides Your Zodiac Sign to a Life of Purpose. It's not a cookbook about astrology. It's a map of depth, built for those who aren't satisfied with superficial answers, For those who, like every Scorpio, were born with the need to understand things from the inside, not just the outside. It touches your sign from an angle you've probably never accessed. The hidden purpose within what you call intensity. The reason behind every pattern you've always felt but never been able to name. You are in exactly the state this material was designed to reach. Not when you are at peace, but when curiosity is alive, when discomfort is active, and something inside you is telling you that there is more to discover than you imagine. The link is in the first pinned comment. But be aware, this content may be taken down. Click now and download your copy. And before we continue, tell me in the comments, what is the last digit of your birth year? Did you already feel that this number had something to say about how you function, or is this coming as a surprise? Now let's get to what you came here to find out. If the last digit of your birth year is 1, you carry the vibration of beginnings, of the original impulse, of the force that exists before any form exists. In Scorpio, this translates into something that seems contradictory at first glance, an intensity that pushes forward while simultaneously resisting with equal force everything that seems imposed from the outside. The Scorpio, with the digit 1, has an internal engine that doesn't ask permission. It feels what it wants to do before it can articulate why. And when something or someone tries to contain this impulse, what appears is not direct confrontation. It is silence. It is strategic retreat. This Scorpio disappears and returns transformed, without anyone around noticing the entire process. The greatest gift of the number 1 in Scorpio is the courage to start over. When everything falls apart, and in Scorpio, everything falls apart at some point, this sign has a capacity to rise again that seems impossible to an outsider. But the cost is starting over alone, because asking for help goes against the natural frequency of the number. And this loneliness in starting over is the silent weight that the number 1 places on Scorpio. If your zodiac sign is 2, the story takes on a different texture. The vibration of 2 is duality. For Scorpio, who already lives between extremes by nature, the number 2 amplifies this duality to an almost unbearable point. You feel 2 opposing things at the same time with equal intensity: love and anger, attraction and repulsion, the need to be close and the impulse to move away. Scorpio with the number 2 is often mistaken for unstable, but it's not instability. It's a sensitivity that registers both sides of everything simultaneously. The challenge of the number 2 isn't choosing a side. It's learning to exist within this tension without breaking apart. Duality isn't a calibration error. It's how this Scorpio perceives the complete truth of things. And there's enormous strength in that, when they find how to use that ability instead of being consumed by it. If your digit is 3, the vibration is expression. The Scorpio with the digit 3 has such a dense inner world that it becomes a problem when it can't find an outlet. It's the Scorpio who writes, who speaks, who creates, not as a hobby, but as a necessity for emotional survival. What remains bottled up doesn't evaporate. It boils over. It accumulates pressure. And what has fermented for too long usually comes out in a way that surprises even itself, with an intensity that no one around was expecting, in a direction that no one had foreseen. Channeling isn't a technique for this profile. It's the only way they've found to transform what they feel into something the world can receive. The number 4 in Scorpio creates one of the densest profiles of all possible combinations between sign and number. The vibration of 4 is structure, solidity, the need for real ground beneath one's feet before taking any step. And Scorpio, which naturally lives in the territory of the invisible, the emotional, that which is always in transformation, when it carries the number 4, feels an internal conflict that very few people can see from the outside. Scorpio, number 4, builds walls, Not out of coldness for survival, because emotional chaos costs them too dearly. Every time that Scorpio opened a wound and was betrayed, they added another layer of protection. And now there are layers upon layers, and deep down, buried with the care of someone who knows that place needs to be protected, there is a heart that still wants, that still hopes, that still believes in what the world has already given enough reason to stop believing in. The struggle of Scorpio, number 4, is between the need for structure and the desire for dissolution, between wanting total control and knowing at some deep level that what you most desire in life requires precisely the openness you most fear. The number 5 in Scorpio represents movement. It's the vibration of constant change, and for a sign that transforms by nature, the number 5 amplifies this transformation to a point of restlessness that doesn't pause, even in moments when everything seems calm on the outside. The Scorpio with the number 5 is rarely still, not physically, internally. There's always a new idea arriving, a dissatisfaction being processed, a cycle ending while another begins before the previous one has had time to be digested. The danger here is dispersion. A Scorpio with the number 5 can transform so much and so quickly that they lose track of who they were becoming. The anchor for this profile isn't the stability the world offers. It's the intention they define for themselves. What are you building with all this transformation? That's the question the Scorpio with the number 5 needs to learn to answer. And the answer changes, but it needs to exist. And the number 6 brings to Scorpio something that seems, on the surface, like gentleness, but is, in fact, one of the most silent burdens a human being can carry throughout life. The Scorpio with the number 6 feels a visceral responsibility for the people they love, not as an obligation from the outside, as a mission born from within, and this sense of mission can be the greatest gift or the greatest imprisonment that this Scorpio knows. Because when someone who is cared for with this intensity doesn't live up to expectations, it's not disappointment that this Scorpio feels. It's heartbreak. It's the specific and unmistakable feeling of having given everything, of having opened up what they rarely open up, and not having been enough for someone who, from the outside, anyone could clearly see didn't deserve half of what they received. You recognized something in yourself just now. That feeling of, that's exactly it, of seeing a pattern that has always been operating but never had a name, is the kind of clarity that the divine path that guides your zodiac sign to a life of purpose was built to offer. For the Scorpio, who carries the digits 4, 5, or 6, who feels the weight of the structure they've built around themselves, the restlessness of constant change, or the silent cost of loving with mission, this digital book speaks to the layer that generic sign descriptions never reach, not as theory, as a real tool for self-understanding. The link is in the first pinned comment. The last copies are running out. Click now and begin your journey toward the clarity and genius you deserve. If your digit is 7, you carry the vibration of mystery upon mystery. Scorpio is already the sign of the invisible, of what lies beneath what is being shown, of what operates in layers that most people don't know exist. Adding 7 is like placing a second mirror in front of the first. The reflections go too deep for any line to reach the end. The Scorpio with the digit 7 thinks in a way that those around them rarely follow, not out of arrogance, out of genuine depth. There are connections that this Scorpio sees between things that seem completely separate. There are patterns that they detect before they happen. There is a reading of what is to come that works in a way that they themselves have difficulty explaining, because explaining it would require that the other person already be seeing what they see, and this ability often turns into isolation. It's too lonely to be the only one seeing what's really happening. Scorpio, number 7, learns early on to keep what they see, to wait, to trust the process in a way that no one understands, not out of naivete, but because they see the line that others cannot yet see. The number 8 in Scorpio creates one of the most powerful combinations in all of numerology. The number 8 is the vibration of power, abundance, and the never-ending cycle, represented by the symbol which, when laid on its side, becomes infinity. In Scorpio, which already operates at extremes, the number 8 amplifies magnetism to a point where this Scorpio attracts what it desires with an ease that can be frightening. Situations arrive before being called. People appear before being sought. Doors open before being knocked on. The problem isn't attracting, it's what to do with what comes, because when this Scorpio isn't aligned with their own purpose, the force they emanate turns into chaos. Relationships that arrive with an intensity that neither of them was prepared to sustain. Decisions that change entire lives at once. Transformations that destroy before building, not out of bad intentions, but because power without direction doesn't distinguish what serves from what destroys. And the digit 9 represents the end of a cycle, the vibration of completeness. For Scorpio, who already experiences endings and beginnings as second nature, 9 brings a permanent feeling of closing something, that each phase carries the weight of all previous cycles, that each goodbye has the texture of all the other goodbyes that have happened before. This can be exhausting when the Scorpio with the digit 9 hasn't yet understood what it means. But when they are aligned, that Scorpio possesses a wisdom that seems to come from somewhere else entirely. An ability to let go that the rest of the world studies for years without achieving. A relationship with the end of things that isn't fear, it's ancient familiarity. It's knowing in the body that the end is not the opposite of the beginning. It's what makes the beginning possible. Power without direction doesn't choose, it simply happens. Scorpio knows what it's like to be swept away by what it hasn't learned to control. That's exactly what the divine path that guides your zodiac sign to a life of purpose speaks to with precision. For those who carry the digits 7, 8, or 9 and feel that what they have inside is more than the world around them knows how to receive, this material is the difference between operating in the dark or understanding the true voltage you carry. Depth isn't a problem to solve, it's a skill to learn to use. The link is in the first pinned comment. The last copies are running out. Click now and begin your journey towards the clarity and genius you deserve. And then there is 0, the only one among all the digits that doesn't represent a quantity in the conventional sense. Because 0 doesn't measure. 0 precedes. It is possibility before any possibility exists. It is silence before the first musical note. It is the void that paradoxically is the only thing that can contain everything. For Scorpios born in years ending in 0, 1950, 1960, 1970, 1980, 1990, 2000, the vibration is unique among all possible combinations of sign and number. It is not the most intense in the sense of brute force, but it is the broadest. It is the one that carries within itself, in a way that defies logic, the echo of all the other digits at the same time. The Scorpio with the digit 0 doesn't have a fixed mold. It's like water. It takes the shape of the container it's in without losing its essentially inherent nature. This Scorpio has an adaptability that can be mistaken for a lack of identity by those who don't truly know it. And few truly know it, because what this Scorpio shows is always calibrated to the context. But it's not a lack of self. It's an identity so deep, so rooted in what is essential, that it doesn't need a fixed form to remain intact. This Scorpio manages to be what the situation demands without losing themselves in the process. You can enter the chaos and remain centered. You can go through transformations that would shatter other profiles and emerge on the other side recognizable to yourself. Different, yes, but whole in a way that only those who have been through it can describe. The challenge for Scorpio, represented by the number 0, is the boundary. How do you define where you begin and where the other ends, when you can adapt to almost anything? How do you know what you truly want, when you can find meaning in very different paths? The Scorpio with the digit 0 needs to learn, and this learning usually takes decades, not months, that the absence of form is not the absence of limit. That 0, as the basis of all numbering, carries within itself the potential for all paths, and that potential without choice is merely possibility. The greatness of 0 lies in what you decide to embody, not in what you are capable of becoming. You have your digit now. You have the number that closes your year, and perhaps you're feeling a mixture of things: recognition, surprise, that specific discomfort of having been seen up close without having asked to be. That's Scorpio processing, not with the speed the world usually demands, with the depth the information deserves, but now that you know, what changes? Change your internal vocabulary. When a pattern repeats itself in your life, you no longer need to call it weakness, destiny, bad luck, or fate you didn't choose. You have a map. You know where the impulse comes from, where the point of tension is, what frequency is operating beneath it all. It doesn't mean the patterns will disappear. It means you can observe them from the outside for a moment. And that moment, that space between impulse and reaction, is enough to make a different choice. It also changes the way you read the past, the cycles that repeated themselves in ways that seemed independent, the intensities that went beyond the point before you realized it. The people who arrived with a force that seemed greater than chance could justify. When you have the map, you begin to see that there was a guiding thread that you weren't seeing, not because you were blind, but because no one had given you the language to describe what you were experiencing. Scorpio is not the sign of intensity. It's not the sign of jealousy or mystery, although all of that can appear and appear strongly. Scorpio is the sign of conscious transformation, of the one who descends to the bottom not because they were dragged there, but because they chose to go. Because I knew, even without having the right words, that down there was something worth the entire descent. And your digit? It's your specific way of descending. It's the unique path that numerology weaves with the nature of Scorpio to create a version of depth that is only yours, that never existed before you. That won't exist exactly like this after you. You were born in a specific year, with a specific last digit, and that wasn't by chance, even if logic tries to tell you otherwise. Because here's what Scorpio knows better than any other sign of the zodiac. Coincidence is the name we use for patterns we haven't yet learned to read. You are learning to read yours. And that recognition, that moment when a layer lifts and what was underneath becomes clear, is the kind of transformation that doesn't need drama to be real. It doesn't need crisis. It doesn't need loss. Sometimes transformation is just that, stopping calling what has always been the norm chance, stopping fighting against your own frequency, starting to live from who you truly are, not from who the world expected you to be. That's Scorpio. It always has been, and now you have another piece of the map.